Well, hello everybody and welcome back. Wello, this is the Jason Stapleton program, broadcasting. You would think I've done 903 episodes. You'd think I'd figure out the intro. I'd be able to do that without screwing it up. But you thought that, you'd be wrong. But welcome back everybody. This is Jason Stapleton program, broadcasting once again from sunny Southern California. With me as always is Matt. How's it going, Matt?
I am better than I deserve, but not as good as I'll be tomorrow.
Hey, see, there you go. That's a very positive outlook. Make your tomorrow bigger than your today.
It's all about the trajectory.
I was amazed. Yesterday was a writing day for me. So with the exception of a video that I took time to do on how you know when you're having the effect of influence that you want. Other than that short video I put together, I wrote all day. And then I sent it over to my sister, who's been helping me with some of the editing, because what you get from me, and I had the conversation with her this morning, and I said, we were talking about the book, and I said, listen, I know that what I'm sending you is barely readable. Like, I recognize I don't write well. I'm not good at it. I never have been good at it. I can't spell. I can barely read. And I said, but I have all this information in my brain and I need to get it onto paper. And then I need somebody to take all the information that I have and the way in which I've explained it. And I need you to put it into a cohesive, coherent book, because the way I write is very much, because we had this conversation this morning because she texted me yesterday and she said, hey, let's talk tomorrow. She said the first chapter needs to be reorganized. She said the other two are good, but she said the first chapter needs to be reorganized. Well, of all the chapters that I thought would need work, the first one I thought was solid. And so I talked to her on the phone and I said, okay, what's going on with it? And she said, well, it just feels like towards the middle of the first chapter, you really went into stream of consciousness and you were just writing as whatever came to mind. And I said, sis, the whole book is stream of consciousness. I mean, there's no planning. I put titles, every single title, because I have chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, and I've got titles for every one of the chapters. Every one of them, I wrote the chapter headline, the title of the chapter before I wrote the chapter. And at the end of that chapter, I had to go back and change the title because the chapter was not about what the title was.
You didn't wind up where you started.
No, I did. I wander away, but I get all the information. It's like, imagine 10 years of learning influence, persuasion, and telling stories, and you're just trying to put all that information onto a page that somebody can read. For me, it doesn't start with an outline. Oh, let's talk about this and this. I know the order that somebody needs to learn it in, and I am literally just, okay, what's the next step? Let's write everything I know about that. Let's tell as many stories as I can that explain and validate the position that I'm in, and we'll go from there. And the book itself, we are going to get to the news, by the way. I don't know why I ended up here. Like everything else, this is stream of consciousness. So, but I am reading, you recommended that I read a book called Skin in the Game.
Yes.
And I've started the book. I'm maybe, 3 or 4 chapters into it, and already I'm loving it. And one of the things he talks about is that most of the people who talk shouldn't talk because they don't do. And the people who do should spend more time talking about it. And all of the books that I have read on influence, persuasion, with the exception of 1 or 2, are really from a perspective of a scientific perspective. We ran all of these tests. We had all these theories about why people take the action that they do. And so we tested a bunch of these, and this was the outcome that we came up with. And so it's very much an analytical approach to influence and persuasion, why we do the things we do, and the results of the tests that scientists ran on human beings to determine how they make decisions and why. The book that I'm writing lays all of that aside and says I've never been in a laboratory. I have never run tests on anybody else for the purpose of collecting data to put into a paper. What I have done over the last 10 years is take all of that information that I learned from those people and practically apply it in the real world. And so the formula that I'm creating, or I'm trying to create in this book, is really nothing more than a user guide for all that information. So if you've read Cialdini, if you've read a lot of these other guys who talk about the scientific experiments that they've run, what this book is we're not going to talk about any of that. You can go read that if you want to. Here's how you do and practically apply what these guys have taught in order to grow your business, make more money, work less, have to sell less, and all of that. And so I'm really excited about how it's coming along. I think it's going to be a really good book. But we are streaming live today for all of our private Facebook group people, all the people who are supporters and members of our program. And I want to thank you guys all for being here. So very thankful and grateful to have you all along for the ride. And I'm going to be answering every month. I let the folks who spend a little bit of money with us ask questions, and I answer them in a live event that I hold. We're going to be doing that. I believe it's on Monday. And all it takes for you to tune in, to join the private Facebook group and to really be part of the inner circle here is just to go to, is it Jason Stapleton Program?
Correct.
JasonStapletonProgram.com/members. JasonStapletonProgram.com/members. I will put the link in the show notes. And it's $5. And $5 a month gets you into the private group. All the communication that happens there gets the show live streamed to you when it's done. You ask questions, we chat with the pre-show, and as we continue to grow and have guests and things, we'll have a post-show as well that will only be available to you guys. So we're just trying to build out, and for $5 a month, give you guys absolutely as much value as we can. And this is the promise that I make to you all. It's the promise I've made to you from the beginning. Not a single dollar of that money goes into my pocket. Every single dollar, well, it does in a roundabout way, but let me explain what I mean. Every dollar that comes in from that program gets spent on growing the show, spreading the message, improving the quality of the stuff that we've got going on here. So the more of you who join that program, the better show we create. So if you love the show, if you think it's of value, please go and join JasonStapletonProgram.com/members. Anything I missed?
It sounds like all of it to me.
All right. Good to go. Well,
you're on your game. It's got to be that bourbon.
I got to tell you, if you remember, Ryan Reynolds bought a gin company called Aviation Gin, and I don't even know if it was called Aviation before he bought it, but that's the way to do it. If you're the way to do it is not to spend 10 years developing your own bourbon and then hoping it sells. It's just to go and find somebody who's got a small bourbon operation and just buy it up.
Put your name on it.
Yeah, slap your name, start promoting it, which is what he did. I watched his wife. What is her name? She's the blonde, and she was just in a movie called A Simple Favor. And it was funny because I was watching that movie, and in that movie she drinks martinis, and she gets out the bottle of gin to make the martinis with, and of course Aviation Gin is the one that she chose. So they had a nice little product placement in there.
What a coincidence.
I know. Hey, you know what? If you got it, use it. So is there still, I got to tell you guys, I was unaware that there was still a shutdown going on. I have been out of the loop for vacation. Then I came back. I did the show on excellence being lonely. Then we had the interview with Constance, and I really have had no need to look at anything other than just local news for the purpose of seeing traffic and weather. And so when I rolled around this morning to really focusing on figuring out what had been happening for the last couple of weeks, I realized we're still in a shutdown. And I'm thinking to myself, well, other than the small handful of Americans who rely on government to feed their families with, who really has been affected by this? And I guess I would ask you, and I can ask those of you who are listening to the show live, have any of you seen any change at all in your standard of living, in your lifestyle, in the quality of services that you receive from anyone based on this shutdown? And Matt, I posed the question to you as well.
I was in the same boat as you. I forgot it was even happening.
Okay.
Last night I went on Twitter to try to get a feel for what was going on to prepare for talking about on the show today. And apparently Trump had an address, and the only way I knew about it was because boycott Trump's address was trending. And I was thinking, why are you boycotting it? Why do you have to tell people that you're boycotting the thing? Just why are you even paying attention to it in the first place?
Well, it does look like on Tuesday he's going to have an Oval Office address, which will Nancy Pelosi, I can't wait to see this, Nancy Pelosi will retort after it's done. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer as well will strongly oppose the wall and have repeatedly called for Trump to reopen the rest of the government while border negotiations continue. So this is, understand what's going on here. first of all, I find it funny that all of these Trumpists out there have completely forgotten the fact that Trump said before he got elected that Mexico was going to pay for the wall. Unequivocally. No doubt in his mind, Americans were not going to pay for this wall. It was going to be the Mexicans, the Mexicans. And then he went from, the Mexicans are going to pay for it, or to, sanctions are going to cause the Mexicans to have to pay for it. One way or another, they're going to pay for it either through import taxes, which hurts you and I as much as it does anybody else, or they're going to agree to pay for the wall.
I know one way he suggested was that all the immigrants that come here and they work, they use Western Union to send money back to their families in Mexico. So he said he was going to shut down that and keep people from sending money back across the border, and that was how it was going to get paid.
Yeah,
for.
Because we've been so efficient at keeping things like drugs and money from flowing back and forth across the border. I'm sure he's going to find the handful of envelopes for people making minimum wage and shipping their money home. I'm sure they're going to tackle that problem. No, that's stupid. And I heard today that, it was my renegotiation of NAFTA now that's the way they're paying for it, which is all BS. I mean, the guy said, this is not going to cost you a penny. And now he's saying, no, it's going to cost you $25-30 billion on the low end. And we all know if they say it's $25 billion to build a wall, it's going to be $100 billion by the time it's done. And I hold to this belief that this is what the government here is doing has nothing to do with security. Donald Trump is not interested in preventing illegal immigration. He's really not. That's not what this is about. If you go all the way back, there's an important point here that all of this is based off an early stump speech that he gave during the primaries back in 2015?
It might have been, it might have been even before
all the way in
primaries.
2015. It was one of his very first speeches that he gave. And he mentioned half a dozen things in that speech. And the one thing that got the most amount of play was the fact that he talked about the criminals and the drug addicts and the gangbangers who were flowing across the border. And that, of course, created an uproar on the left and solidified the base on his right. And that's what he ended up running with. Now, keep in mind, if you go back and listen to that speech, he mentioned half a dozen different things. Now, that was intentional. One thing Trump is not bad at is promotion. He is a shameless self-promoter, and he knows how to figure out what the people want. And he does that simply by doing what he did in his stump speech, which is to offer 6 different things in his stump. I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this. Wait to see what they latch on to, and then run with that. And that was the basis of his entire campaign, if you remember, was border security, making foreign countries pay, America first, bringing jobs back, which included punishing our allies as well as our enemies. All of this stuff was all part of him getting elected. Now it's time for him to make good on it. And other than a few thousand jobs that he's managed to keep here in America by coaxing companies to stay rather than go, he really hasn't done much. He's done a tax decrease. He's decreased some taxes, and he has done a lot on the regulation side. I will give him that. You got to give credit where credit's due. He's repealed a lot of regulation, which is good. But my point is, on this issue of the wall, the entire time it was in his mind a security issue that Mexico was going to pay for, and that just simply hasn't happened. And so now the Democrats are hell-bent on ensuring that Trump cannot get his primary the primary reason for him getting elected, or one of the primary reasons, which is border security, getting that passed. So you've seen Chuck Schumer, and you've been watching any of the social media. There's half a dozen people who've done the before and after Chuck Schumer, where he talks about how important border security is and how we need to keep illegals from coming into this country, to today when he's talking about how terrible Trump is for wanting to do that. And what I'm getting at here is that, and just simply is that Trump is, in a sense, got his back against the wall because the Democrats do not want him to accomplish this one. What do you call it? This
initiative.
Initiative. Thank you. This one initiative. And my mind is starting to wander here as I try and figure out exactly how I want to drive this show. But as we talk about the the initiative that he's created with this stump speech, and we talk about the Democrats, understand that the Democrats don't care about border security either. They don't care about the wall either. What this is entirely political in the way that it's being handled. Trump has decided to quote unquote shut the government down, which according to my notes, 800,000 workers affected. I'm surprised it's that many. Let me read to you a little bit about
how they define effective.
Yeah, that's what I say. So the shutdowns left approximately 800,000 federal workers in financial limbo. 420,000 essential employees are working without pay, and 380 have been ordered to stay home. So that's shocking to me that there's that many government employees that you could furlough and nobody notices. Like in reality, they're saying there are 420,000 essential employees who are still working without pay, and there are 380,000 who've been said not to come back to work. Well, that means that the 420,000 who are working without pay are not giving you a max effort at that point. They probably weren't in the beginning, but they're sure not now that they're getting paid, or that they're not getting paid. And the 380 aren't producing anything of value anymore.
So now you're getting a fraction of the productivity of a government worker.
Right, and nobody knows. Exactly. And nobody notices. This is my point, is that you didn't notice, I didn't notice, unless you're a government worker who now has lost his paycheck. Nobody notices.
Imagine if that was Walmart or Apple or Best Buy or whatever company that was furloughing that many workers.
Oh, yeah. Well, and not only that, imagine what would have to happen in order for them to do that. You wouldn't be able to furlough that. I don't even know what that is as a percentage. Look up how many workers, federal employees the government has, because I'd actually be interested to know what percentage they've laid off. If they've got 800,000 of them either not working or working at a minimum capacity.
Wikipedia says as of 2009, the federal government, excluding the Postal Service and soldiers, employed about 2 million civilian workers.
That can't be right. That's so 50% of their. That's 50%.
Even if it's 2,500 now, still you're talking a third of the.
Yeah,
a third of them. Yeah,
there's no way.
Yeah.
No, it's absolutely that's bogus. Okay. So CNBC, this is an article from CNBC. The government shutdown spotlights a bigger issue. 78% of U.S. workers live paycheck to paycheck. That, however, is a serious issue that I want to address. I actually talked to a friend of mine who works in the film business, and he said that his company just laid off something like 20 people, just came in and said, your entire division is gone. We're reallocating our funds, and you guys are out. Now, I don't know what sort of severance package they got or anything. I have no idea. All I know is those people thought that they had contracts for the next 18 months, and now they have no paycheck. And these people rely, well, in the film and television business, you kind of know that you go gig to gig. You go from contract to contract, and when a show finishes, then it doesn't kick back off for another 6 or 8 months if you're lucky enough to be back on that show again, and that show ends up carrying forward. So everybody knows that you're normally 6 to 8 months away, 12 months away from being unemployed. So it's part of the business. But when you do get a contract, you expect to have that contract. And when that gets pulled out from under you, especially a long-term contract for 18 months, it does a number on you. It is absolutely, it's unfortunate. And I look at those folks and I say, you live in this gig economy. You've got to do a better job of managing your money if you know you're going to be out of work. Now, that's in an industry where you know that you're going to be out of work at a specific time. When you get a government job, you don't ever think about being out of work. You just assume that you're going to have a job for the rest of your life, and you're going to have bennies for the rest of your life.
That's the big perk is the benefits and the security, the stability.
Well, and it used to be that, oh, yeah, you make a little less money working for the government, but your benefits are better and job security is better. Not anymore. Now you make as much, if not more, than your private sector counterpart, and it's virtually impossible to fire you, unless, of course, you have a government shutdown. And so to them and to you, this is what I would say, and this is the conversation I had with my friend when he was telling me about everybody who got furloughed, got laid off at his business. And I said, you gotta have another option. Like, you've got to have a fallback plan. Anytime you work for somebody else, you gotta have a fallback plan. I mean, we're not in any sort of financial desperation around here, but there is a chance that if something went completely haywire, I might have to walk in and say, hey, Matt, I can no longer afford to have you on the show. I can't afford your outrageous salary.
I
don't really pay Matt very much to come here, but the point is that we may hit a day when that actually has to happen. And Matt's smart enough that he's already got a side gig, and he helps me somewhat with the copywriting around here and some of the other stuff that we do that both helps him in his job and in his side hustle, and also helps me with this business. And I would challenge you guys to look for any area like that. I remember I was talking with my sister again years ago, and her company she worked for was offering to send her to all of these different training programs to learn how to use Illustrator and learn how to use Premiere Pro and video editing, because it was part of the stuff that she was using for her marketing that she was doing. And I said, take every class. Anything they are offering you for free that builds your skill set, go and do it. If they have financial reimbursement for programs that you can take or events that you can go to, do all of them. Even if it costs you pay, even if you have to take off to go do it, do it. Because the reward that you get from that knowledge carries on long after you leave that company.
That's an investment in the industry that you know best yourself.
That's exactly right. It's an investment in you. I've got a chance to go to Miami at the end of this, at the beginning of next month, to a very large conference. And it's one of those things where I am debating. I'm now at a point where I want to make the connections, and the only way to do that is to go to one of these events. So there are people there that you're going to meet, you're going to rub elbows with, as long as you're willing to spend enough money. You can get in the room with all of the other people who can afford to spend big money to get in the room. And one of the things that I debate now is, what's my time worth? Because yes, the connections are worth something, but it's also a 4-day trip. So it's not the $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 that you're going to spend there buying the first class ticket and to the event and flying out there and staying at the hotel. It's not the $6,000 or $7,000. That's not the most important thing. The most important thing is the 4 days that you're preoccupied with something else rather than working on your business, or rather than working on the things that make you the money. And so you have to kind of weigh the two of those. But there are multiple events this year and multiple conferences that I'll be going to, because the people that I want to meet, the people that I want to cooperate with and collaborate with, are going to be there. All of the best information will be shared there. And if you guys are not spending and investing time in that stuff in your life, if you're not constantly finding that thing that brings you joy and passion in your life and then pursuing that, you're really wasting your life. Because your job, and more importantly, you're putting yourself at the mercy of someone else and their timeline and their want and desire for your life. And at some point in your life, somebody's going to show up and say, hey, your head's on the chopping block. I don't know if we're going to be able to keep you. Wasn't your fault. You were fantastic. You were phenomenal. You've been hustling like nobody else has been hustling. But the company's not doing well, and you're expendable. And so I say two things to those of you who struggle with that or who are worried about that, because you're going to see a lot more of it. Like this thing, 78% of people live paycheck to paycheck. These are people who aren't saving any money. These are people who don't have any plan for the future. They don't anticipate a downside. It's the worst position you can be in. The first thing that I teach traders when I was working with traders was, you need two things to trade. You need a chip and a chair, just like gambling. If you got a chip and a chair, there's an unlimited number of tables, but you got to have two things: money and a chair to sit at. And the truth is, if you lose all your money, you can't play anymore. So rule number 1 in trading is don't go broke. Rule number 2 in trading is don't go broke. That's the only rule. Don't go broke. Don't lose all your money, because you can't come back from losing all your money. You lost it all. And so we teach people to constantly recognize the downside. Anytime you look at taking a position, anytime you look at trading, and this goes for you investors as well, what's my downside? How bad can I get hurt if this goes sideways on me? Where am I getting out regardless? Those stop losses in the market are of critical importance, and they're important in your life. One of the questions I'm going to be answering in the group on Monday for all you guys who are members of the show is one about taking risk. And he said, when the question is, when is it okay? At what point in your life is it okay to lay it all on the line, to throw it all on black? And I'll give you a little insight into how I'm going to answer that question. It's never okay to do that. It's risking everything on a roll of the dice is foolish. Now, risking everything on a calculated gamble where you have a high probability of coming out on top, where the upside is significantly greater than any downside risk that you might have, well, then it might make sense.
This is square in the heart of skin in the game.
It is, yeah.
As you get later into the book, he starts talking about risk. He talks about ergodicity, which is this mathematical concept that I've had the hardest time wrapping my mind around. And Fooled by Randomness, I've started reading that book as well. His entire Inserto, Nassim Taleb's whole set of books, is all about decision-making with high risks and how to manage risk.
Well, what I like about him, and at least the portions of his books that I've read, is that he was an options trader. And so he has practical application of these principles that he talks about. He has the scientific knowledge. Reading the book is not an easy read either, by the way. He's
got a quirky voice.
He does. He has it's different. Let's put it that way. And it's very cerebral. He's you can tell he's in his own head and he's operating on a level that I don't operate at. But he's able to explain it in a way that I can understand it, which is good. But one of the things that I really like about him is that he practices what he preaches, that his knowledge about the subject matter that he talks about is rooted in his own understanding and practical application of it in real life. And that's what I find so beneficial about what he writes. You're trying to get him on the show, right? Yep. Okay, yeah, because I would really like to talk to him. And I think that you guys would benefit from hearing from him. But when we talk about this and about people just having no money, it's that no one has calculated the downside. No one's anticipating a downside. They're living as though tomorrow will always be better than today. And the fact is, I don't care who you are, I don't care how good your business is, there will always be times when money is tight. In the last 10 years, I have been broke many times. And broke to me is probably different than broke to other people, but everything's relative, I guess. But I can remember times when I was like, I'm looking at the bank accounts and I'm like, okay, we've got X number of dollars going out and X number of dollars coming in, and that means I'm going to have to limit what I pay myself this month so that we can make sure payroll's met and make sure our marketing budget is in place and make sure that we're safe. And I'm going to have to find a way to bring in another, $100,000, $250,000 in the next couple of weeks to make sure that we stay in the green by the time the end of the year rolls around. See, I'm constantly not looking at how much money's in the bank account today. I got to pay attention to, if this current trend continues, where's the bank account going to be in a year? Okay? If this current trend continues, what do I need to expect 6 months, 8 months, 12 months down the road? Yeah, you might be flush with cash today, but what are you doing to feed the pipeline? And you got to be feeding the pipeline in your own life. You have to be. If you're not constantly learning, constantly building, constantly growing as a human being, then you're falling behind. A friend of mine says it the best. He said, if you're staying where you're at, you're falling behind. Because somebody out there somewhere is hustling harder than you. He's making gains while you're standing still. And pretty soon you're going to wake up one day and realize that you're in an unrecoverable position because you haven't made the investments in yourself necessary to be viable in whatever new era we end up in. So anyway, for those of you, let me tell you about some of our sponsors today. For those of you who are interested in learning something, but you don't want to spend a lot of money, you're like, Jason, you want to talk about your broke being different than my broke. I'm the real kind of broke. Fair enough. I want to tell you about Skillshare. It's the online learning community for creators with more than 25,000 classes in design, business, and more. You'll discover countless ways to fuel your curiosity, creativity, and your career. Take classes in social media marketing, mobile photography, creative writing, even illustration. Everything that you're looking for right there to meet or exceed your New Year's goals. I have taken several of the classes, social media marketing. I've taken some on drones. I've taken some on photography, because those are all subjects that interest me. And every one of them an outstanding course. These are not dumpy little courses. People spend a lot of money putting these things together. Join the millions of students already learning at Skillshare today with a special offer for my listeners. 2 months of Skillshare for free. Now, if you remember last year, it was 2 months for 99 cents, 50 cents a month. Now it's 2 months absolutely free. Zero excuses. Even if you got $0, you can still invest in yourself. That's right. Skillshare offering my listeners access to over 25,000 classes for free for 2 months. Sign up today, Skillshare.com/Stapleton. Again, that's Skillshare.com/Stapleton to start your 2 months now. Skillshare.com/Stapleton. And then Policy Genius. Guys, we as self-sufficient human beings believe that whether you are alive or dead, you are responsible for yourself, and that includes the cost of putting you in the ground and providing for your family after you are dead. And if you don't think I'm pretty much okay with my mortality. You got some people who they've never really had to face it. The first time that anybody ever talked to them about dying, they got a bad prognosis on a health report from the doctor, and they start really facing their own mortality. Most people don't think about it. I've been in the uncomfortable position of having being faced with my mortality many, many times, so it doesn't bother me as much to talk about it as it does other people. But the fact is, we're all going to die. And if you haven't bought life insurance yet, you really need to, and that's where Policy Genius comes in. It's the easy way to compare life insurance. In minutes, you can compare quotes from top insurance, find insurers, find the coverage you need at a price you can afford. They do a lot of different kinds of insurance, not just life insurance, but homeowners insurance, auto insurance, I think even pet insurance they do as well. So you can check all that out, get covered fast. If you've been intimidated, frustrated by insurance in the past, just try starting a search at PolicyGenius.com. In minutes, you can compare quotes and apply. You can do the whole thing right from your phone. PolicyGenius.com, the easy way to compare and buy life insurance. And then we got a new one in here that I'm going to save until later. This is one I've been using, and then when they contacted me about it, I'm like, oh, I use that. Yeah, I'll promote that. Absolutely, I'll try. So we'll tell you about that one in a minute. But before I want to talk about this oil thing, because it was brought to my attention by somebody who specifically asked me to talk about it. But that article I gave to you, talk to me a little bit about that.
So this was a case with the University of South Carolina. They had two different student organizations ran afoul of campus speech codes when, in promoting a pro-free speech event, they displayed posters and handouts that referred to censorship at other colleges. Although the students obeyed the school's regulations about handing out materials, several people filed harassment charges because they didn't like what the handout said. In a bizarre turn of events, the students were questioned and investigated by school officials for talking about incidents where other students were likewise questioned and investigated for exercising their First Amendment rights.
Hang on. So, break that down. So they were talking about times when other students were questioned about free speech, and now the school was questioning them about questioning those. This is like Inception.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that's it's a speech code. The title of the article was, you can't make this up, a speech code that investigates students for discussing the freedom of speech. So apparently there was a court case about it, and the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit ruled for the University of South Carolina. So Cato is joining the ACLU of South Carolina, the DKT Liberty Project, and Reason Foundation in filing an amicus brief urging the Supreme Court to hear their case, supporting the students' right to express themselves in ways consistent with the First Amendment.
Yeah. Now, amicus brief is basically just an opinion to the court.
Yes.
It means nothing. It's just a bunch of people got together and said, hey, we think you need to consider these facts.
We're in solidarity with these people, yeah.
Yeah, and so, it's funny because you would think that colleges, which are places, institutions of higher learning, would want as free and open dialogue about everything as humanly possible, because the idea in colleges and any, especially higher learning, I can understand the need. I'm not a big fan of rote memorization or anything like that. I'm much more interested in kids understanding how to think rather than what to think. But there are times when you show up at school and you need to learn the multiplication tables. Like you just need to have a way to process and grab that information when you need it. What 3 times 5 is what? You got to know what that is just like that. And so some stuff in grammar school, rote memorization and learning is important. In talking with my sister about this book, I can remember I talked to her today and I said, listen, I never learned this stuff in school. Now, I can blame it on public education, which I do frequently, but the fact is I went through an AP English class, and I still can barely spell. I don't know, I can't pick out the adjective or in a sentence. I don't know how to do any of that. I just write. And anybody who has ever read anything from me recognizes that I have no talent or skill at that. However, I got a lot of information. And my position has always been on this. You have to learn the basics. You have to learn the basics about how to read, write, and do arithmetic. Once you have the very basics down, the rest of it can be hired out. You've got these kids in high school right now who are doing, trigonometry and who are doing physics. And if they're not going to go into a field where they need to use that information will be lost into it will be wasted time that could have been spent learning something like personal finance, learning how to calculate interest rates or balance a checkbook. I know most people don't use checkbooks anymore, but learning how to balance a ledger, understanding basic, 2-line accounting so that they know how to read books and how to, do their own personal finances. That's stuff that benefits everybody. Learning a little bit about our government and what rights are and those types of things are of critical importance if we want to stay free. So there's a whole host of things that they could be learning other than these advanced classes. But once you get to a place of higher learning, it would seem to me the best case scenario would be a wide open free-for-all where you could pretty much say anything you wanted. You can make any outlandish claim that you wanted to as long as you were willing to open it up for challenge. I love this idea. I don't understand why people are afraid of knowledge and information, why people are afraid of voices. See, in the arena of ideas, we can't be defeated. We win. Because history proves that the closer we turn towards free markets, the more we focus on personal responsibility and individual liberty, the more wealth and opportunity we have. The more we turn towards statism and totalitarianism, the less freedom, the less wealth, the less opportunity we have. See, true socialism, this is what you will hear people say, is that true socialism has never been tried. And they'll say, well, true capitalism, and I remember Ron Paul doing an interview one time on some chick on public radio or something, and she was saying, well, no one's really ever tried your sort of laissez-faire libertarianism. And he said, well, no, it hasn't ever been tried. Not the way I would like to try it. And so they use that as an excuse to say, well, real socialism hasn't ever been tried. And if we just did it right, then it would be good. And real libertarianism hasn't ever been tried. So you shouldn't do that either. Here's the thing. While both of those statements are true, socialism, libertarianism have never been tried the way those of us who want those things have advocated for them. We have tried them in pieces. And what we find is when we try the pieces that lead us closer towards socialism, it results in 30 million people dead. Okay? And when we try libertarianism and we start moving the ball that way, we see wealth and opportunity on a scale unimaginable prior to the implementation of those ideas. The amount of wealth and opportunity that came out of the birth of this nation is like nothing anyone could have possibly imagined. All because we were following very libertarian principles and ideas about the rights of man. And this is of critical importance when we start talking about this, because it's not just about the politics of it, it's about the life of it, the life choices that you make. Do you live the values that you've prescribed to? And so when I look at this kind of stuff and I look at institutions of higher learning that are saying that they're unafraid or that they have the right ideas and that they're going to silence anybody who has a dissenting opinion, what they're really saying is I don't have the intellectual capacity to defend my own ideas. And it frustrates me to no end that schools choose, instead of stomping that stomping a mud hole in that, which is what they should do. They advocate and protect it.
Because they're people who they're afraid of competing in an arena of ideas, because then it's no guarantee that their ideas are going to win out.
That's correct.
And if their ideas don't win out, then they're going to lose power.
That's right.
The original university system was a place for people who wanted to learn to go and read. That was essentially the entire capacity of it, was just going and reading.
Are you talking about the university system all the way back to like Socrates and Plato?
Yeah, or even Middle Ages.
Okay.
A couple few hundred years ago. Even like Oxford. If you go to Oxford, there you're not referred to as a student; you're referred to as a reader, because people there they go to read.
I didn't know that.
It was only within the last 200 years or so that they started basically hybridizing a university where you go to read and gain knowledge, and trade school where you go to get licensed for specific types of trades. So when they hybridized those, you created this weird behemoth that doesn't actually it's not a system that can sustain itself.
Yeah.
Because ultimately you start getting ideology involved in it, and when you have licensing, you're starting to create barriers that people have to go through. So if you have to have a cost with those barriers for people to get through them.
Yeah.
And then ideologues have come up and they've taken control of that institution, and then they benefit from the fact that our entire society is geared toward telling people to be successful, you have to pass through this gate. If you don't pass through this gate, you can't be successful. But then what you were just talking about, you're a case in point example. You don't have to understand grammar rules to be successful.
No.
You've been immensely successful, and you say yourself you can't read or write, essentially. So like our concept of what constitutes success is completely skewed. And it's entirely because we have these ideologues who are at the top of these ivory towers where they sit there and they direct the debate.
Well, and I think this idea that you need a well-rounded education is complete and utter BS, designed to separate you from your money, is what I really think.
Yes.
Because you need to be good at one thing. Like, I mean, if you're good at one thing, you can hire everything else done. Like, if you're really good at coming up with ideas and really bad at implementation, which a lot of entrepreneurs are really good at getting things started, really bad at follow through. So you got to surround yourself with people who are really good at follow through. You can't be good at everything. The best you can hope for is to be really good in a set niche. I had a guy who posted, I did the show on Excellence is Lonely, and one of the guys on Facebook said, or sorry, on Twitter hit me up. He's like, I just think you're taking it to an extreme, and why can't it be 5 to 20% family and business rather than 1% just in business? And here's, if you listen to the show, you kind of understand what that means. If not, you need to go listen to it. But here's the thing. If you choose, what I was talking about is excellence in any area. If you are going to be exceptional in any area, it's going to take a drag on the other areas. You cannot be exceptional in all areas. If you choose to want to spread load your time and attention to multiple areas, then you have to understand that you will be mediocre at all of those things rather than exceptional at one or two of them. Okay, that's just the cold, hard reality. Nobody wants to be told you can't have it all, but you can't have it all. You have to choose where you're going to apply your time and your attention. And if you choose to apply the bulk of your time, so to say, improving your golf swing, I guarantee you that your business is going to suffer. Likewise, your family life will suffer because you'll be out at the links 18 hours a day instead of being home. There are choices that get made. I don't like to use the term sacrifice, but there are choices that you have to make if you choose to be exceptional. If your goal is to just be pretty good, well, that wasn't what the podcast was about. It was about those people who choose to be the very best at what they do.
I was thinking about this the other day in the context of news, because I have friends on my Facebook wall that were like, well, where do you go to get good news? What sources do you use? And everyone's giving their different takes on where you should go. And my thought was, why are you reading the news? The news doesn't matter. What's going on across the world doesn't matter if your life isn't sorted out. If you don't have your source of income nailed down, because the guy who had posted it sells cell phones or something, and he's always complaining, big Bernie supporter, he's always complaining about how the system is rigged against him and he can't get a leg up. So why are you reading about the news? Why are you wasting your time figuring out whether Al Jazeera or BBC is better instead of focusing on your industry? Become the best in your industry. All you need to know is the news surrounding your industry. Everything else is going to sort itself out. You don't need to be aware of it. Focus on your industry and get good at that. And then if you're independently wealthy and it doesn't matter what you focus your attention on, you're going to stay wealthy. Okay, then go figure out which news source is best for you.
Yeah. Well, and you can look at the two of us as an example, is that, look, we went on vacation and we weren't spending our time trying to figure out what government was doing while we were gone, because it doesn't really matter.
I've never felt better.
No, we'll figure out a way to win whatever they try to throw against us. It's like, dude, we both live in California. I mean, the deck is stacked against us from the beginning, and yet we still managed to come out on top. It's just like, you can't keep me down. You can't hold me back. You can't keep me from getting where I want to go. There's no limit. I will outwork you. I will out hustle you. There's just no, you don't have a chance. If I choose to come into your world, you don't have a chance, because I will do more. I will, and see, that's what when we talked about excellence, that's what I'm talking about. See, I'm not ashamed. You could call me arrogant if you want to. Fact is, it's true. I mean, when I started this podcast, I had absolutely no background in politics, economics, anything like that. I have no college degree, much less an economics degree. And we blew all of those people out of the water because I just was willing to do more and go farther, and I was just straight up better. And it is what it is. My point is, if you don't have that kind of mentality about yourself, if you're sitting around looking the other way and saying, well, that's the reason, or that's the reason why I'm not getting ahead, and you're looking for somebody to blame your life on, look, it's you, man. You're the reason. And the great thing is that you get to choose whether or not it stays the way it is or whether it becomes better, because you are the vehicle for your own change.
If you want to point at a bunch of other people and explain why they're the reason you can't get ahead, figure out a way to monetize that. If you can monetize that, then you'll have you'll have Verge or whatever the liberal rags are.
Well, so it's funny because I was talking about there's a subject in when you're creating a personal brand, a personal narrative. I'll give you guys some insight into this, because a lot of you guys who listen to this are trying to develop podcasts, so you're trying to develop your own side hustle, and I'll give you some insight in it. When you're developing a personal brand, one of the things that people have to know who you are, or at the very least, they have to think that they know who you are. And I explain in more detail how you actually do this, but the fact is they need to know how you feel about money and life and success and politics and family and religion, all this stuff, right? And so you take money, for example, and I try and explain it doesn't matter how you feel about money, because regardless of how you feel, you will attract different types of people to you. So what you have to do is you have to figure out what type of people you want to attract, and then you have to hold values that those people would be attracted to. So take, for example, money. Do you think that money is it comes easy, or is it hard to get? Is money the root of all evil, or is it a tool that helps you achieve more wealth and freedom in your life? What are your views on money? And I point out that, well, if you're in an entrepreneurial space, if you're a coach or consultant or something where you're trying to impress upon people the value of having money as a resource, then you're going to want to talk about it in a very positive light. I said, if you're a priest or a politician, then talking about taking an anti-capitalist approach to money and, a very root of all evil sort of spirit about it is going to do well for you. So it's all about who you want to attract. And I try and teach people that you should try and attract people that are closest to who you are as a person, because it makes life a whole lot easier. You can fake it if you want to. You can try and become a completely different person in the public eye than you are in private, but that tends to implode, and you tend to not be able to do that for very long because the truth just comes out. And you see it time and time again with politicians and business owners who claim to be one thing, and then you find out that they're not, and then their reputation is shattered. It's far better just to be whoever you want to be. I remember there's a guy named, you remember Tucker Max? Tucker Max wrote a book called I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell. And I used him as an example, as an extreme example in my book of somebody who just he's an unabashed womanizer and drunkard. And it just had this, he is one of the most offensive people that you will meet. I actually listened to him. He was at an event I was at years ago, and he's just as offensive in public and unapologetic as he is in his book. And he was able to sell millions of copies of his book because basically he appealed to a group of 20-somethings who were former fraternity guys and college guys who were now working in the real world in a cubicle. And the reality of how much life sucks has now hit them. And they secretly dream of being back in the frat house. And he gave them permission to be okay with feeling that way. And the truth is, no matter who you are as a person, there are millions and millions and millions of people out there who will like who you are. There are hundreds of millions who will hate you. Don't focus on those people. Focus on the people who are most like you and who will be most attracted to you and to your message, and ignore all the other haters, because they're not going to buy anything from you anyway. They're not going to listen to you. You've got no control or power or authority over them, so don't worry about it. Just focus on the people that you can help and the people who are attracted to your message. That's why when we decided to change the direction of the show, I didn't care what anybody thought who didn't want to go where I wanted to go, because we got the number. There are so many more people out there who are attracted to the message that we're speaking now. We don't got to worry about the few that are going to leave. We can replace all those people. There's always more people out there who are interested in your message. Most important thing is being in alignment with who you are and what you want and where you want to go. So let me tell you about Capterra. So have you ever been looking for software or some other gadget, something that we were looking for chat software a while back because I needed a way to communicate with everybody in the team, and I wanted something that could integrate the calendar, and I needed it to do a lot of different stuff. And you end up doing Google search after Google search trying to find it. And after a while, you end up stumbling across, you type in like best chat software for inter-team communication or something, and all of a sudden you get a pop-up where they kind of give you a breakdown of all the different software that's out there. Well, Capterra is that website. It's the leading free online resource that helps you find the best software solution for your business, with over 700,000 reviews of products, and real software users discover everything you need to make an informed decision. The nice thing I like about Capterra above all of the other ones is that there is a massive amount of real-world user reviews of this software. So you really get, before you go spending money and investing time looking into a specific software piece, these guys have already collected a massive amount of information from real-world users about it and have given you a score on it. Search more than 700 specific categories of software, everything from project management to email marketing to yoga studio management software. It gets niche, baby. And you get the solution fast. Join the millions of people who use Capterra each month to find the right tools in their business. Here's the call to action. Visit Capterra.com. That's CAPTERRA.com/Stapleton for free today to find the right tools to make 2019 the year for your business. That's Capterra.com/Stapleton. CAPTERRA.com/Stapleton. All right.
There is so many ways of making money. It's amazing. I'm looking at Capterra's website, and someone's brilliant. It's the most obvious thing. It's just aggregating these types of softwares. But it's brilliant. The interface is fantastic. The whole concept is great.
And they're making enough money that they can afford to pay the outrageous prices that it costs on this show to buy advertising. I'm always impressed when people come to me and they're like, we want to buy 15 spots on your show. And I'm like, really? In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, do you know how much money it is? I'm like, man, you guys are doing well. You can afford to pay these prices. And then my next thought is, of course, I'm not charging enough until until no one's willing to buy advertising. Then we need to maybe bring it down a couple of notches. But anyway, it's just, I don't know. I've always been amazed at a couple of things. Is number one, the number of ways there are to make a lot of money, and ethical ways. Not even leave out the unethical ways. The ethical ways to make money. And number two, just how much money is out there. mean, the amount, I will give you an example. Tim Ferriss's show. Tim Ferriss charges, I'm not kidding you, last I heard, $49,000 for a 60-second spot. $49,000 to be on his podcast as an advertiser, and he's sold out on his advertising. Now you think for a moment, who has $49,000 for one 60-second spot? And then you go, well, the NFL, they charge $5 million a spot for Super Bowl time. $49,000 seems like a pretty cheap deal. There's so much money out there, and it's just begging for a place to go. All you got to do is show them a little bit of value and then watch it come in. And like I said, the value to somebody else for the knowledge and skill that you have it can be a 10x, 100 times multiple of what you charge them. And what you charge them can be in your own mind an outrageous fee. It's just, there's no excuses in this life. There's no excuses in this world to fall short of your goals and to fall short of your true potential.
One of the guys in the watching live in the Facebook group, he says, new side quest, become successful enough to advertise on JSP. Jonathan Devine.
Well, every once in a while I find a product that I really like, and I do a little side deal to promote it, and I don't charge as much money. But that hasn't happened in over a year now. But yeah, we keep having. I mean, I vetted 3 different potential advertisers yesterday, and one of them is somebody who'd been back with, who had done business with us before and absolutely loved their product, so that was easy. And a couple of other ones that I actually use their product, and so those were easy as well. I'm really blessed. I really feel blessed, and I'm glad to have you guys listening. Now we are coming to the end of the show here, and we did not get to either of the things that I wanted to talk about, which was the healthcare for all in New York City or the oil thing. So if you were hanging around waiting for that stuff, I'm terribly sorry. We're going to have to wait until Friday to discuss that stuff. But I'm going to be on a show this afternoon. We're recording it.
Controllers and Keyboards.
Controllers and Keyboards. It's a podcast called Controllers and Keyboards. And so if you want to head on over there and subscribe to his podcast, that'd probably be a good idea, because I don't know when the episode's going to come out, but I intend to give a good interview later on this afternoon, and you'll want to hear it. So go check them out, Controllers and Keyboards. That podcast is, I'm guessing it's not just a catchy name, that they're actually talking about technical stuff. So, until Friday, guys, enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you to all of you all who are live, and we'll talk to you soon.